Today, some pretty heartbreaking news surrounding Spider-Man and the future of Spider-Man in the Marvel Cinematic Universe has officially been released, which makes some fans almost nervous about the future of both Spider-Man and the MCU. But is the nervousness actually necessary? Let's get into it.
Agent Romanoff, you miss me?
Oh yeah, Charles, we got ourselves an X-Men fan.
Captain.
Your Highness.
Jackman, big fan, Spider-Man. Hey everyone.
So if you guys didn't already know, essentially back when Captain America Civil War was originally set to be filming and in production, Sony and Marvel made a deal where Marvel would have the rights to use Sony's property with Spider-Man, who is a Marvel character who had its license purchased years ago by Sony in upcoming Captain America, Avenger movies, and in turn, they would also collaborate on making some of the Spider-Man standalone movies that were still released by Sony. However, they would be existing in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and on top of that, they would do some sort of profit sharing. Honestly, at the time, it looked like Sony was getting the better part of the deal, where Disney was just happy to have access to Spider-Man as a character to begin with, and it was set that after the sequel to the Spider-Man movie, there would be renegotiations or possible negotiations to extend the deal even longer. So since we've gotten all of the movies that were a part of that initial Tom Holland deal, it looks like they could not reach an agreement when it came terms to negotiating the future of the partnership between Marvel Studios and Sony. So what this actually ends up meaning, though, is that the future is pretty ambiguous. Reports have come in that Disney had a 5% dollar return on the revenue received from the movies that they helped the studio create. It looks like moving forward, Disney wanted to share financial responsibility with Sony at 50% to not only finance the movie, but also on returns from the movie. And honestly, Sony did not accept that contract, opting to try to get Disney to sign on for a very similar deal to what they had initially signed on for back when they signed the first deal. So what this leaves us with is a pretty unresolved answer. What we know for certain is that the upcoming Spider-Man movies and future of the MCU won't be locked down under a specific contract. There still leaves some room in this contract for wiggle room where they can make individual deals if they want to either use Tom Holland in a different Marvel movie, or if Sony wants to use a MCU character in their universe, there technically still could be a deal made in that regard. Essentially, it means though that the way that these deals have been set up or failed to be set up puts Kevin Feige, the person who's in charge of the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe, completely out of control regarding what happens with Spider-Man in the Spider-Man movies and in those universes. So if Sony really wants to, they can choose to make Spider-Man completely exclusive and not appear in the Marvel Cinematic Universe moving forward, and they can do whatever they want with the story as they do own the rights to this character and these movies. So it's very likely that there could be a lot of really weird things that can mess up kind of the timeline that's been established in the MCU so far, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens moving forward and whether or not they can quickly put a deal together that keeps Kevin Feige's involvement in Spider-Man somewhat alive before Sony decides to completely block Spider-Man off and start incorporating him into his own universe, having him do movies probably with Venom and the whole Spider-Man universe that they have been trying to launch for a little while now, with Venom being the first of the films. Now, on one hand, it'd be really cool to see Venom and Tom Holland duke it out on the big screen, and if we could never see Tom Holland in the MCU again, it would be cool to see a Spider-Man versus Venom movie again, and there's even potential if they ever wanted to do a Spider-Verse movie, and they could actually get Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire to return. That would be amazing, but it would be a real shame if we never got to see Tom Holland exist in the Marvel Cinematic Universe again, especially with how rooted that character was with other characters like Happy and Iron Man, and we even saw the Skrulls and all of that in Far From Home. It'd be a real shame if we didn't actually ever get to see these things elaborated on or fulfilled, but Spider-Man could still exist on its own in an okay manner. It's just Kevin Feige does his job well, and he makes these movies great, and it's kind of nerve-wracking knowing that Sony, the people who have put out subpar movies in the past, would be in charge of the fate of this great actor who plays Spider-Man. So we really don't know what is going to come out of the future with all of this, and it's going to be interesting to say the least. We do hope that maybe there can be some sort of deal made where perhaps Marvel, while they don't get a say in the grand scheme of things, they can maybe make some sort of deal that makes Sony put a few restrictions on what stories they tell with Tom Holland to keep the Tom Holland Peter Parker at least rooted where it could make sense in a timeline within the MCU. But we really won't know what happens with that until more movies get announced down the road. For the future of Tom Holland, it doesn't look like he's going to be fired from Spider-Man, at least not yet. Hopefully that doesn't happen, because we do think he's a great actor who plays Spider-Man. But he is rumored to still appear in 2 more upcoming Spider-Man movies. However, we don't know if he would be able to make any appearances in the MCU moving forward. At the same time, the MCU is still in its early stages of planning out the future. We only have a few movies officially announced, and it looks like there isn't a big team-up movie in the future, like a new Avengers movie, but I definitely am sure that the MCU and Marvel was kind of banking on using Tom Holland in some way or another moving forward, and now they're probably not going to be able to do it unless some awesome deal can come out of it. There's also the thing we have to consider is that Sony does have Spider-Man, and they can do a lot with this character if they can start making some better decisions. The way that Venom was handled was mixed amongst fans who watched the movie, and while I didn't think the movie was awful, it definitely could have been better. It definitely wasn't anywhere near the level of what we saw Tom Holland's Spider-Man Homecoming and Far From Home come out to be, but we do have a sequel to Venom coming out, and there's other movies that are supposed to exist in this Spider-Man universe that didn't have Spider-Man also set to release. There's a Morbius movie coming out and other things that have been allegedly being developed on for quite some time now. So it'll be really interesting to see what they end up deciding to do with the Sony Spider-Man universe and the Marvel Cinematic Universe in a separate regard. I don't think there's going to be a really easy replacement for a character like Spider-Man, especially since they've been setting him up to kind of fill in the shoes of Iron Man, and we even speculated that Tom Holland's Spider-Man could be the future leader of the Avengers, and to not get that to happen, it'd be really disappointing. But at the same time, Kevin Feige has his hands full, as they now have the rights to all the Fox characters, meaning that if they want to introduce any X-Men characters, or if they want to somehow make Ryan Reynolds Deadpool come into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they can do that. But it'd be a real shame if we never got to see Deadpool and Spider-Man together at the same time. That would have just been amazing. Hey, but you know what? I remember way back when the first Avengers movie came out, it was the same year that Amazing Spider-Man was released with Andrew Garfield, and a lot of people knew that it would be impossible for Spider-Man to ever appear alongside the Marvel Cinematic Universe because of all of the legal issues, and they still made it happen. And the idea that Spider-Man would even come to the MCU was such a long shot back then, and while it might be really discouraging that it seems like we lost something that we had, we never know, because they could always cut another deal. I think Sony understands that their movies were extremely successful because of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. A lot of people came to see Spider-Man Far From Home as a direct result of what happened in Avengers Endgame and Avengers Infinity War. And I think that they know to an extent that they need the Marvel Cinematic Universe to pull in those box office numbers again. If they don't have the MCU helping out with Spider-Man, I don't think the next Spider-Man movie will have as many people coming, because there's less of a story to care about there if Tom Holland's Spider-Man is no longer in the bigger picture. And on the other end, of course, Marvel wants Spider-Man in their universe because this character is such a staple, and they've let this character become such a staple of the MCU. So it's really up in the air what's going to happen moving forward. We'd love to see your comments down below what you think will happen or should happen. Should Disney have maybe let up and just took the same deal they had before? Or do you think Sony's being ridiculous by not taking the deal that Disney wants and sharing the profits more evenly because of all the help they did at establishing this Spider-Man series and making it so successful? Let us know what you think in the comments down below. Be sure to subscribe with notifications on for more videos like this. See you all next time with a brand new video. Bye guys.
I'm about to.
Hi, everybody.
Hey everybody, how you doing?
Hi.
See you guys.
Know anybody?